Meet Sung Jinwoo, the weakest hunter in all of mankind, who's basically just an average civilian, but his suddenly changes when he enters a deadly dungeon filled with despair-infusing statues that effortlessly kill without a second thought. Join us as travel through this magical world filled with monsters. 5 years earlier, a group of hunters face off against a horde of ants, but start getting killed before 3 other S-rank hunters arrive, and swiftly the ants before 2 of them, Yoonho and Yoonseok, rush forward and defeat the leader together as an even larger horde approaches them. Meanwhile, Guildmaster Choi sends his hunters forward and commences the attack against the ants on his side. In present day, at a construction site, Park greets Kim and remarks that his wife's pregnant with their second kid, so he's going to return to hunting for a while, although he's a bit nervous since he isn't sure if he's still in shape. Sung Jinwoo arrives at the site, and everyone starts warmly greeting him as Kim also asks if he's had any food. Park asks if he's a big deal since everyone seems to know him, which Kim denies and says he's actually called the weakest hunter in all of mankind. So whenever he gets called for a raid, you know it's going to be easy. He suddenly stops himself so that Sung doesn't overhear them, to which he inwardly remarks that he already did and meets with his friend Joo-hee, who worriedly asks if he was injured again, to which he explains that he was the only E rank in a raid before everyone heads inside with a man named Song Cheol as the leader. Upon clearing the dungeon, they remark that it didn't have any valuable loot as Joo-hee heals a very injured Sung. They discover another pathway and take votes on whether or not they should head inside. At the end, over half of them agree to go with Sung, inwardly remarking that he has to pay for his mother's hospital bills and his sister's education, and casting the final vote in favor of going in. Meanwhile, S-rank hunter Cha-hee swiftly catches a pair of robbers, but gets away when people appreciatively start crowding around her. As newly formed hunters are receiving a welcoming message from a man named Go Gun-hee, Sung and the others enter a gigantic hallway with different statues on its corners, as they see a plaque telling them to revere God, praise God, and to prove their faith to God before Joo-hee shakily says she saw the eyes of the largest statue move. The door closes and a man tries to get out, but gets completely chopped off as Sung looks at the statue's eyes and remarks that he's always been the weakest and looked for opportunities, which is probably why he could tell. The statue suddenly emits a large beam from its eyes, incinerating a lot of the people, seeing which Joo-hee gets down to the floor in fear and Sung questions if they're really going to die in dread. Song asks Sung if he was able to tell that the thing was going to attack, and seeing Joo-hee cowering on the ground while covering her ears, says this is why she doesn't go to higher ranked dungeons despite being a B-ranked healer. As Sung bandages up his arms, he says he's been to many B-ranked dungeons, but this thing is probably an A or even an S rank. Over 10 years ago, portals known as gates appeared and connected their world to an alternate dimension, giving birth to a supernatural phenomena in the world. Those who awaken special powers are known as hunters and are tasked with defeating the beasts that lie in the dungeons inside the gates, as a hunter's power, once active, never changes, but at times one finds monsters who inspire something akin to absolute terror. A man tries running out since he's confident in his speed, but gets instantly vaporized, after which Sung remembers the commandments, telling to revere God, praise God, and prove their faith in God. He tests something out and quickly bows down to the god, telling the others to do the same, which they nervously agree to. Seeing them, the god starts smiling and gets up from his seat, walking towards them and crushing everyone that comes under his feet. Everyone starts running and asks Sung what they do now, so he remarks that the second commandment told them to praise God, and tells everyone to quickly stand in front of the statues with instruments. He leaves Joo-hee at one and hurriedly tries running to another, but his leg gets crushed under the god's feet, so he desperately crawls towards the statue, after which the god goes back to his chair and the others approach him. Joo-hee hurriedly starts healing Sung, but blood starts pouring out of her eyes and mouth as Song says she overexerted herself. Kim tells him that all this is happening because of his carelessness as a leader, which he gravely agrees to, telling them that he'll take responsibility for it when the time comes. Suddenly, an altar rises in the middle of the hall, seeing which Sung says it needs a sacrifice, so the others force Song to go there, but nothing happens, so he asks a man and woman left to carry him there. They all reach a circle around the altar before the gate opens, and the woman and the man carrying Sung hurriedly run out of it. Sung realizes that as soon as they break eye contact with the statues, the remaining people will get killed before Kim tearfully apologizes and runs out as well. Song tells him and Juhee to go as well so that he can be sacrificed, but Juhee is unable to move, so Sung forces him to carry her out, after which the door closes. As he's left alone, the statues start killing him by slashing at his body as he desperately questions why it was him and asks for a second chance. As his blood seeps into the altar and he slowly dies while holding Kim's dropped sword, a screen appears asking if he would like to become a player, whose yes button gets clicked. Sung suddenly wakes up in a hospital bed and sees that all his limbs are intact, wondering what happened, and if it was a dream before two men named Woo Jingchul and Kang Tishik from the Hunter's surveillance team enter, and tell him that he was unconscious for 3 days, and while the others are okay, Song will probably have to retire because of losing an arm, and Juhee has been mentally affected and is receiving psychiatric care. Woo explains that there were many casualties, but somehow when the White Tiger Guild rushed in, they found his body fully intact. He questions if he underwent a second awakening and checks him through a manometer, but sees that he's still as weak as he first was. When they leave, Sung wonders why they didn't ask about the screen hovering over him and sees that he's received a daily quest, telling him to perform different exercises, but he ignores it and goes to sleep. Later at night, he suddenly feels an earthquake and gets transported to a desert where he's told to survive for 4 hours as gigantic beasts chase after him. 4 hours later, he's exasperatedly thrown back into his room and gets up for training the next day. As he's running, Juhee receives a call telling her that he's fine, so she goes to check up on him, but leaves after seeing that he's working hard. As Sung wearily sits at a bench, he remarks that he's learnt that the screens aren't his hallucinations, and once he completes his daily quests, he receives skills that completely erase his exhaustion, ability points for him to distribute between his stats and daily loot. He receives a key and sees that it's for an instance dungeon, so it'll be an event for him to get even stronger than he recently has by putting all his points into strength. He arrives at a train station and inserts the key, entering an instance dungeon where he instantly starts getting attacked by a horde of goblins, but sees that he's genuinely gotten closer as he stabs a goblin and a while later defeats the entire horde. Suddenly, a ferocious red wolf pounces on him from behind and destroys his dagger as Sung tells himself to get it together before facing Lycan as it jumps towards him. As we conclude our journey thus far through the extraordinary world of solo leveling, the beginning of Sung Jin Woo's evolution from the world's weakest to a formidable hunter has been nothing short of spectacular. If you've enjoyed this tale of magic, monsters, and self-discovery, stay tuned for more captivating tales, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for your ticket to thrilling realms.